Can you hear me? We back. We're back. We back. Somebody can't handle the truth, baby. Somebody cannot handle the truth, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I'm going to tell it like it T-I-Z-tis. Yes, I am. I'm going to tell it. I'm going to give folks a chance to get back in the room. I appreciate you all for coming right on back. Listen, we're not ignorant of the devil's devices. Folks can't handle the truth. Could it be? Could it be? Uh-oh, let me get to the right sound effect. Oh, y'all, you know what? I am not moved. I am not moved in the least bit. Rhonda, there's a spy in the camp, girl. There's a spy. Could it be? Could it be? The devil? Listen, y'all not gonna convince me it's not a spy in the camp. Anytime I get to going, listen, Monica, that's part of my thing. I tell the truth, but I also got the cracks up in here. We got the crackulations up in here. So when we get done with it all, I tell you the truth. We laugh, we hee, and we kiki, and we done obviously made the devil mad. But listen, devil, you might as well stop with 2 legs. Two legs, Rhonda Royal, 2 legs. But at the end of the day, you can't stop this. So listen, we're giving. I got about 5 more people that haven't made it back yet that I'm expecting. I'm gonna give them a chance to make their way back. And then to add to it. It wouldn't send out the notification. It told me the notification was not going out. Oh my goodness, y'all! I'm feeling. Hey, Heat. I'm glad you're here, Heat. Listen, I need you to bring all the heat you can, because the folks are playing with me. They didn't like what we said. Listen, at the end of the day, Chris, I told what God loves, and that is the truth. I tells it like it T-I-Z-tis. We ain't going nowhere, BTD. I know you said it. You said it correctly. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I'm saying it like I'm going to say, we ain't going nowhere. We're here to stay. And listen, y'all have to run me out of here, and I'm going to knock me off 4 times. I'm coming back 5. So it's not going to deter me. It's not going to stop me on my journey, because at the end of the day, we going to bang, bang into the room. We going to bang, bang. Come on. We're coming right on back. As a matter of fact, this is what people don't realize about our resolve. The more you try to push me down, the more I rise. The more you try to shut it off, the louder I get. So listen, you going about this thing the wrong way. I just want you to know, because I'm coming back, and I'm coming back with gangbusters. And so that's it, Chris. The harder we fight, sometimes you just wake up that extra in me that says, oh, we gonna do this. You want to do it like that? Oh, we're going to do this. So at the end of the day, we all good. We're all good. I want to thank you all for coming back. And I got about 4 more that still haven't made it back yet, but that's all right. We'll let them come back if they can get back in, but we're going to go on with the show. Is that okay? Because I appreciate you all. And listen, that wasn't nothing but a blip in the radar. Let's get it. Here we go. Here we go. That's where we were. That's where we left off, and that's where we're going to be. Hey, you got time, Monica? I got time. I got time to tell the truth. I got time to tell the truth and shame the devil. Hey, at the end of the day, we are already great. We're already overcomers. I'm a lion, and you gonna hear me roar. Hey, that's all I'm saying. I got all day since I can't walk. Girl, we gonna pray for your legs so you can walk. We got all the time, Chris. We ain't scared. We ain't scared. We got all day. Yes, we do. And I'm loving it. I'm glad I'm on somebody's radar, because that means that you see the words and truth that I'm saying as a threat. And hopefully it's enough that when people hear it, when they come back and see they cut your ward off yesterday and it hurt, oh Lord, you getting paid to be home. That's what I'm talking about. Get a check, girl. Get a check. Get a check. Now, as I was saying, the woman in New York, and I saw the video, and she started slinging them racist words around that we have heard ever since slavery started and ever since they brought us to this country. And that N word and the B word, and put the N and the B word together. So they asked her very politely, and I want to understand what it is. Now, while you want to talk about people's rights, I have a right not to wear a mask. We have a right to live. We have a right to not get lynched. We have a right to not get strung up and knees in our neck, shot 7 times in the back. We have a right too, but somehow we can't see those rights. Oh no, don't tell me they called you the N-word, Heat. Don't tell me they called you the N-word. Because see, at the end of the day, we see what, and this woman was not old. I want to bring up that point because I am all the time hearing all of that's in the past. This is a new day. Listen, there's a whole bunch of stuff lurking. There's a whole lot of stuff lurking. And I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, yes, we do, Brenda. Yes, we do. I'm glad you made it back. We have a lot of stuff that's lurking, and we want to say what's past and what's no more. This woman over a mask, and the lady asked her so nicely, and then she picked up stuff and started assaulting the woman. And so then you see another brother that comes from back and says, hey, ma'am, you got to leave. Oh, she's giving what for? She's cussing them out. She's slinging all kinds of N-word, B-word, the N-B word together. But the closer that brother got to her, she act like she had some sense. As crazy as she was, the closer that brother got to her, she acted like she got some sense and started moving herself towards the door and gets ready to walk out, and then hurls her ultimate racist remarks. And I looked and I said, we have so much work to do. And at the end of the day, while you want to jeopardize everybody else in the building's life, because listen, we already know you've been who knows where, hither, thither, and yon. You've been everywhere. I've been everywhere, man. You've been everywhere with no mask. And then you want to bring all of that up in here with people that have been taking care of themselves. Listen, racism should end now. I'm tired of it too, Heat. I'm when you say tired, I'm sick and tired. Sick and tired. And I'm sick and tired of the games that we keep wanting to play as if it's non-existent. Because really, the change that needs to happen all revolves around the racism that is still so strong in the land. So, oh my God, yes, you got all kinds of agreement with you, Heat. We've got to come to another level. But to get there, we got to admit, call a spade a spade. You all keep saying it's all over and it's in the past. When they asked the president, and I don't know if you guys saw this segment of the interview that Woodward did with him, and they asked him, did he believe that there was systemic racism? And he said no. And another thing, he did say on one hand he believed that there was racism. And what was the other thing he asked him? That he said no. It's like you can't believe both at the same time. Privilege, white privilege. That's what it was. So the black craftsmen who had been enslaved were starved out when they began working for themselves. You're telling the truth. You're telling the truth, SK. And bricklayers, carpenters, farm managers, blacksmiths, expert cooks, tailors, horse handlers. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And this is the thing. For everybody that wants to say, well, you know, but my grandfather had to struggle too. It didn't matter. If your grandfather struggled and he had white skin, He got opportunities and hand-ups and handouts that the exact opposite happened for black bodies, where we worked hard and many times worked twice as hard, and we were robbed. It was taken from us. It was stolen from us. It was burned out. We were starved out. There is no comparison. Which is why you look at, even between marginal white, marginal black, and look at the difference between the two, there's still a 13-time wealth advantage that the same white to black, 13 times higher for white people than it is for black bodies. So don't come at me with all of that. Don't come at me with all of that, because racism and hatred towards our skin is still in full effect. So understand, when I begin to talk about poverty for white and poverty for black is still two different poverties. Don't deceive yourself. I understand hungry is hungry. I understand needing is needing. But at the end of the day, there's going to be a rescue made for white bodies that will never come to black bodies. Or if it comes to black bodies, it's going to come at the end of the road. Hear what I'm saying? It's going to be at when you can't get around it any other way. So we need to have some clarity on this insanity of racism that is gripping us. I'm going to get on it in just a little bit as we get to the word of the day, because the word of the day is HR 35. But this woman at Verizon, I want and hope that they can get her name. I hope they can get her information. I hope they get her for assault and battery. I hope they get her for all of that, because she did it all. And I feel that at the end of the day, just like if they tell you no shirt, no shoes, no service, if they tell you no mask, get your nasty tail out of there if you're not going to wear one, or go get a mask. It's not infringing on your rights. So we get all of that. You're seeing more of black folks talking about they're tired of taking it because it doesn't exist anymore. You know, education is the key. And I'm with you on that, Monica, because Chris, because I told my sister in conversation on yesterday, I feel like at this point, we need to go out and actively begin to educate, because I'm hearing ignorance from all directions. But this is what I want us to understand. You repeat and regurgitate what you hear the most. And that's my issue with why I don't hear anything from the opposing camp. My issue is they're putting their rhetoric out here on a daily. They're putting their rhetoric out here every chance you get. They're putting their rhetoric out there, and as wrong and as false and as untrue as it might be, it's out there, and it's filtrating people's earlobes. And so once it comes in their earlobes and they hear it, I don't care how wrong it is, they have a tendency to believe it just because that's what they heard. Honey, the folks are in a trance, almost like this music. I'm gonna let it play for a second. Baby, they're in a trance. they're in a trance. So they keep saying what they're saying, and this is what I hear in education. This is what I hear in truth. This is what I hear coming from the other side. Crickets. Miseducation has poisoned the mind of the people everywhere. And so when we get down to it, we've got to address, somebody needs to come out and tell the truth. That's why we don't want to see it on your shirt, sportsmen and sportswomen. We don't want to see the names on your shirts. We don't want to see truth spoken on your hat. We don't want to see truth spoken on your clothes, because it comes out and all these people see it and they hear it with their eyes and their ears, and it gives them an opposing thought. Keep speaking. Unmute yourself. The truth needs to come out. The truth needs to come out. Somebody needs to say something. You know what ticks me off the most is when people are protesting their rights and human rights and trying to stop racism, but yet all the cops do is shoot and take. Listen, that whole policing reform issue, it's a form of lynching, and we'll get to that in a minute. We must educate with the actual facts. I agree. We got to have actual facts, not what they've made up, not what they've whitewashed, not what they're spoon feeding to the people. We need the truth. I'm talking about documented facts. I'm talking about things that you can go to the legal books. I'm talking about things in history that haven't been whitewashed, but if you actually go to the record and look at the record, where you can see this is exactly what they did. And not what people, and listen, I'm so sick of the whole idea of changing the narrative. Everything, change the narrative. How do you want to spin it? How do you want to tell it? The truth is the truth. Tell the truth. Stop spinning stuff. Now, I recognize, Scandal. Y'all love Scandal. Y'all loved her, honey, when she came in that white outfit and she strutted up in there. Yeah, honey, my girlfriend was looking all of that in a bag of chips. And she came, Shonda Rhimes' whole storyline about how government is constantly spinning, how government is constantly twisting, how government is constantly manipulating, and showed it to us so clearly. And that's not, listen, that wasn't I know that that's a made up fictional story, but the truths that Shonda was telling in the way that she was identifying, changing the narrative. This happened, but we tell you this story over here, and America eats it up because media is a part of the villain. And I'm not saying all the way across the board, but we've got to begin to identify and ask for media that's going to report the facts and report them correctly, not skewed, not given a narrative for a party. Just what happened to the days of just telling the story like it tis? We cannot find it, but we've got to educate. Education, it must be a re-education of the minds, because there are so many where the water pool is tainted. And listen, it doesn't take a whole lot. I can go to the water pool. I can go to BPU right now in Kansas City, Kansas, and I can put some poison in that water. And I can put that poison in that water, and eventually, as it goes out and abroad to the people, that water pool is tainted. Everybody's gonna get sick. It doesn't take a whole lot. It just takes a little bit. All I got to do is critical thinking. We can't be gullible. Oh my God. Isn't that the truth? I mean, some of these stories are just unbelievable. I can't for the life of me figure out how I can hear somebody say, it's worse than the flu. It's 5 times worse. It's 5 times worse than the flu. Yes, it's 5 times worse than the flu. And then have somebody else come back and tell some God unbelievable story. It's like, if I only had a brain, do you have a brain? Can you think? Can you think critically? Are you kidding me? At the end of the day, we gotta stop eating what massa is throwing at us. We've got to educate ourselves. And that's everybody. I want to be clear on this. I'm really talking to black bodies and people of color as an emphasis, but I'm telling this truth to everybody, because listen, everybody is impacted, not just black bodies, but everybody's impacted. But I really want people of color to understand we cannot put ourselves in a position of being ignorant, because what we don't know is killing us. Knowledge is power, and lack of knowledge is destroying us. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So we have to come to a place where we begin to educate ourselves. Critical thinking. I don't need somebody to tell me. You just give me the facts. You just give me the information unskewed. You just give me the information, and I have the ability to critically think and come and arrive at a reasonable conclusion without you telling me how to think and what they meant. Come on. You said what you meant, and you meant what you said. So at the end of the day, If Americans would understand, wake up. Everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid. If we don't get down to the truth, and sometimes, beloved, if it doesn't sound like the truth, if it doesn't look like the truth, if it doesn't smell like the truth, if all of your five senses are saying it's not the truth, believe it. How do you have to work so hard to hear so many voices talking to you to convince you to believe a lie? That's what it is. It's a convincing to try to get you to believe a lie. So you got to get this angle and that angle and the other angle and the da-da-da-da-da. Listen, I don't need all of that. If you just give me the plain, unadulterated facts, I can figure it out for myself because I have the ability to critically think. We've got to teach our children how to think critically. We've got to teach everybody. Unless you can think for yourselves, you are going to be led about like a ring in your nose. I need you to come to another level. I need you to come to another place. So as we look at all of that meltdown, a record number, Essence Magazine reported this, and I'm loving it. A record number of black women judges have been appointed in Colorado. Now, I'm going to tell you, that's one of the reasons why Colorado is not in good favor and good standing. Colorado is doing some stuff up there, y'all, and I'm happy. And the statement says, all rise. That's the caption to the article. Yes, I'm so glad to see, because we need some folks in positions of authority in the courts. Now, y'all recognize 45 placed 300 plus Supreme Court justices at the state level, state Supreme Court level. So 300 we got to contend with. I want us to follow the trend of Colorado. I want us to follow the trend of, because listen, it doesn't matter what we do out here in these streets. It's getting rough out here in these streets, y'all. Yeah, I understand. It's getting rough out here in these streets. But at the end of the day, what happens in the streets, if they don't kill you out there, is made all the difference by what happens in the courts. So we've got to have representation in the courts. We've got to have people that will not be partisan. Listen, justice is supposed to be blind. And instead of being blind, it's just deaf, dumb, and stupid. I'm going to say it again. Justice is supposed to be blind. But instead of being blind, it's now just deaf, dumb, and stupid. We need a judicial system that does not have justice for one group and a totally different justice for another group. We need equality in the courts. And so I'm applauding. I am so happy. I'm excited. Yes, I got to get it together. Thank you, Colorado. And to these women in the robes, all rise, because now hopefully we can get some justice into the system, because we need it. And I want to close with that on this morning, because as we slumbered, slept, and slobbered, and we've talked about these different things, I want to appreciate the young lioness. Thank you for saying their names. Thank you for wearing it. Our own government plus Russian help for 45 dealing propaganda every day. We must stay educated and stay aware. You know, you even bring up that whole thing with how all of these outside countries are coming in and well, now, first and foremost, there's nothing new under the sun. The one thing that I'll say about the internet, you hear the truth and you get stuff in real time. What used to take, who knows, weeks to months to years to get out. What we heard about Bob Woodward's book one day and the same day that was spread globally, because the internet has created that. So it's nothing new under the sun. But when we look at how now, particularly with the internet and with everything else, and we know these things are going on. Trump 45 is coming out and saying it. You got it coming from all kind of directions where they are acknowledging that these outside forces are at work. We've got to start dealing with those kinds of issues as well. Why, oh, why does this continue? Can we not shut it down? Can we not stop it? Yes, we can. But the reality of it is it's helping somebody. And the somebodies in the political arenas that are being helped by these outside forces. And at this point, I'm not going to say a partisan, it's the Republicans. The Democrats are doing their dirty too. Because I feel like this, if the Democrats were not doing their dirty, if the Democrats were clean, if the Democrats didn't have skeletons shaking and tinkling in the closet, we wouldn't get this from the Democrats. The reason why we're getting crickets from the Democrats because somebody's dirty. And that's all I'm going to say about that. When you can stand up and you're not beholden to anybody, when you can stand up freely and speak the truth, you will speak. But the reason why, because somebody else is getting help. Somebody else is getting kickbacks. Somebody else is getting some. So at the end of the day, we have to be educated. We have to be clear. We have to understand what's going on. And we need, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And this is an elephant, y'all. This is an elephant. The United States of America has created a monster. It's two wings of the same dirty bird. So we're going to have to take a bite, one bite at a time, to get this elephant eaten up. And the racism that has been at the root from day one must be eradicated. And it's going to take all of us cleaning up the dirty bird to finally get to where we need to be. Now, I hope y'all hearing me on that, because I'm really serious. You know, nobody is absolved of guilt. Nobody is innocent in this thing, but at the end of the day, the lesser of two evils. And hopefully one day we'll get this cleaned up where we won't be talking about evil and evil. Which evil is worse? Which evil is better? Hopefully the day is going to come where we can clean this dirty bird up. Well, the word of the day. It's time for the word of the day. The word of the day is HR 35. We need to learn the meaning of unity and live by it. And now, Chris, you said a word right there. And many times I tell people, the apostolic anointing that I walk in is to bring people together. I really believe that. Because listen, where there's unity, there's strength. And again, the whole prayer that we all be made one, and we are one. It's just that there's the delusion that has been created that separates us. And unfortunately, a lot of that delusion is driven by skin color. A lot of the delusion is driven by skin color because there are those that believe that darker skinned people are not humans. There are those, and listen, and then you have the flip side of that, where whatever your race, whatever your nationality, or I want to say ethnicity, because there's only one race, the human race, whatever nationality, when we are egocentrism, we're the best. We're better than everybody else. And when you take it, listen, everybody's good. And the evil, as we said, of racism, that is taught, that is learned. We don't come here like that. While I am encouraging black and brown bodies to feel good about yourselves after being told for over centuries upon centuries of time that you're less than human, treated like animals, and the NB word being hurled at black women over and over. And listen, let's deal with it from this standpoint. How many times Even right now in the 2020 race, have you seen Joe and the garden utensil? Joe and the... Because they really, in that language, want to say the NB word. It's that same spirit. It's that same attitude. I just can't come right out and say it. But I'm going to get as close to it. And everybody that has speak ease of racism, you know exactly what I'm calling her. You know exactly what I'm calling her. And I want you to know, I cannot tell you, and I cannot count the number of times that it's the same, SK. It's the same. I cannot tell you the number of times on good Christian pages that are offended about abortion. She wants late term abortion. She voted for late term abortion. We just cannot allow her to be voted in for another term. But you want to say Joe and the, which is another way of calling her an NB. You're deceiving yourself. Because your racist self, and I cannot, and when I tell you, I've gone from page to page to page to page. Because listen, I'm going to tell my friends, I'm going to tell my white friends, any of you that out there, I've probably been on your page to see what you're saying. Come on my page, you can see what I'm saying. And I'll say it again. It's not racist, it's truth. I'm telling it like it tis. But the stuff I see on some of y'all's pages is straight up racism with your good Christian selves. Today's word is HR 35. And I chose to come here. Now, before I do, because I might get carried away, y'all make sure y'all get the book, The Color of Money. The Color of Money. I got to figure out how to hold it for this camera. The Color of Money, Black Banks and the Racial Wealth Gap. I want y'all to get that book and start reading on it, because that's where we're going next in concert. We're going to talk about that. Wrong glasses. You're right, Chris. HR 35. We've got to get some level of understanding back. And again, I had this conversation with a couple of people on yesterday. I specifically brought it up with my sister because she's going to be assisting me in helping to educate the people. Because listen, we had one show on Yes You with my friends where we talked about what's the ask. And we've got to have dialogue that is clear, concise, to the point. When you start talking about what needs to happen in this country to eradicate the racism, we've got to be clear, and we surely can't go in there talking what they have fed into the water, in that tainted water. We need clarity. We need understanding. What I'm finding more and more, particularly with our young people, but not only our young people, is the ignorance. And I'm not saying ignorance in a derogatory way, but I'm saying ignorance from the standpoint of they just plain and simply don't know. Which says to me that we have a responsibility to educate. So my sister Sheila and I, we're going to begin teaching and training in Black history and historical studies from truth, not whitewashed versions. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. But this is the reality. We understand that we've got to educate people so that when we have this conversation, even for those that we'll be talking to, don't fool yourself. They're going to need to be educated as well, because many of them have no clue. They've been fed the same stuff and they believe it because they don't know any better. And that's what they hear. But listen, we got to break this thing down so you can understand it. SK kind of got on my toes and where I wanted to go today when she mentioned earlier about how we've been starved out and various other things that have been done. HR 35, the 116th Congress, 2019-2020. It is known more commonly as the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. Why are you going there with that this morning, Regina? Well, one of the reasons why I'm coming here this morning is because we've got to understand, even in 2020, let me just deal with some fact first. Now, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Scott, we got to understand. Oh, thank you, Heat. We've got to understand some things. They put this in motion, this bill in motion, HR 35. After how many years of lynching being in existence? And why was it apropos that they bring it up now? Because we over and over and over again in just 2020, and we can go before. Listen, Aubrey, that was a lynching. That was a straight up lynch. You know what's amazing about it? That it has to go through all these different changes for people to call a spade a spade. We sat there and watched Aubrey jogging, and we saw 3 white men openly lynch him in a recorded incident where we were able to see it in broad open daylight. It wasn't night vision where you needed night goggles to see it. In broad open daylight, they lynched that brother. Now, this is the extent of how racism has such a strong hold. When you got people that want to say, oh, y'all always want to play the race card. That ain't no race card. They lynched that young man. And the fact that you feel like it's a race card is a good indication you're racist. I know a lot of folk don't want to hear that. But what did he do? We don't know what happened before. Well, they said he was in a house. The owner of the house that was being built said they had no problem with what they saw in the camera of their house because people, white and black, have been doing that the whole time. And how many times do people, while a house is under construction, have various people that come and look at that house? They showed a whole white couple and their family that came in and looked in, and they were looking at what they were doing, and you could hear the conversation. The woman was saying, oh, this is nice. I like how they have da 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 da, and going on and on and on. They looked all around the house, gave themselves a personal tour, got in their car and drove off, but they didn't get lynched. They didn't get the po-po called on them. They didn't get accused of stealing something out of the house. And for anybody that's confused, when they got Aubrey's corpse, there was nothing on him. He hadn't stolen anything. He went right back to jogging. And so you see, they even had the camera where you were able to see the white gentleman calling the police. You're right, Monica. They were the right color. You see him calling the police. There's somebody in the house. Why didn't you call them? I mean, the length of time that family was in that house. They took their sweet time and toured those people's house under construction. I mean, and the beauty of it is the owners had cameras in there. So they're seeing, they're hearing, they're recording everything that's going on. Ain't near a phone call. But this brother goes in and he didn't roam all through the house. He went in, looked at one particular area, looked around, went back out. The owner said they're cool with it. They had no problem with it. He didn't touch anything. He didn't take anything. But lynching, come on. That mentality that says, I am judge and jury and executioner. That spirit of lynching has not gone anywhere. Lynching, was often used in mob format, and whether you realize it or not, they had some lynchings where they advertised it ahead of time to give people time to get there. Now, if that ain't dastardly, I don't know what is. You're going to send out a notice in the newspaper that you're going to lynch so you can give people time to get there? Where is the humanity in that? Entertainment, which is the same. Lynching was entertainment, just like take me out to the bog. It was like y'all watching a sport and bringing the kids to watch it too. And you're not going to tell me with chairs and popcorn, Monica, with chairs and popcorn. And the truth of the matter, as they said, picnics, they'd bring a whole picnic basket with their children, Gems JJ. It was a spectacle. And then let's also deal with this. Then to cut off, maim, mutilate body parts and sell them for souvenirs. Now teach that, America. Don't gloss over it. Don't say, oh, and we went through a dark period. Oh, you think? We went through a dark period and there were some things that happened. Things that happened and things that are still happening. But if you're dastardly enough to get a picnic basket after they send out a notice so you can have a mob present to watch it while you're cheering and gearing, all of this cheering and jeering, and all of this going on with your kids sitting there with, and it's good, and then cut off body parts. You're dastardly. You're degenerate. You're degraded. And don't think that just because somebody wrote something in a bill that it all went away, because that same dastardly spirit that saw, watched, and enjoyed and passed it down to your children, it's still here. Mob violence is still here. This is why we march. This is why we fight. Because it hasn't gone anywhere. And unfortunately, racist white America either wants us to shut up or they want us to dilute it with, well, that's everybody. No, it's not everybody. Everybody's not being lynched. Everybody didn't have things where they were unable to buy homes purposely because of black skin. Everybody didn't endure that. Everybody was not discriminated against. No, it's not everybody. And everybody's poverty is not the same, because while you got assistance in white skin, in housing authority and other types of incentives, black bodies got nothing. And when we created something from nothing, you came and tore it down, stole it, confiscated it. Or in the case of Greenwood, because y'all know those locals did not have airplanes with bombs, bomb it up and kill black bodies in the thousands. All of that is constituted as lynching, my beloved people. Administering your kind of justice without a trial and executing the people of the presumed offender. And more times than not, the people that were presumed offenders were innocent. But you want us to be quiet. Lynch law from Charles Lynch. Now, are we surprised? He was a Virginia planter, but guess what he was, y'all? He was the justice of the peace. Charles Lynch, who lynch laws and lynching comes from, was the justice of the peace. So what's your point, Regina? That's exactly why The criminal justice system needs to be completely overhauled and corrected, because the very foundation and root of it, from Charles Lynch, who was the justice of the peace, who was the person who was in charge of so-called justice and was the head of getting these mobs together and going out and executing lynching. It's that same spirit. So let's bring it down to today. Now, they started off, I'm going to deal with the history of it. They started off as punishing loyalists, anybody that was still loyal to the crown. If you're over here, and that's where, because I'm saying this, I want y'all to understand how these attitudes and ideas start developing, and somehow it's seen as patriotism. Patriots. That 17-year-old boy that went to the march and killed, that was a lynching. Whenever you get done, went and killed, because the people that he shot at the end were chasing him because he had killed somebody earlier. Oh, he was in self-defense. It wasn't no self-defense. He was running because they were trying to capture him for having already killed somebody else. But he's a patriot. Well, Charles Lynch, for whom the term lynching originates, was a patriot. And he first started enacting his vigilante justice against loyalists that were still loyal to the crown. And so, okay, now, mind you, some of this even before the war was won. But here we finally see the root of lynching in this man that's so committed to this vigilante mutilation and execution of people. And part of that was to squash. If the loyalists are still loyal to the crown, we got to squash that. And anybody else that might be thinking that we should be loyal to the crown, we're going to make an example of the people that we lynch, so that it will curtail their desire to want to follow in this mindset. So the lynching wasn't just for the individual. The individual was only a means to enact terror upon other people. If they did that to them, think what they'll do to you. Oh yeah, that's how we keep slaves from running off the plantation, even though there's more of us than it is of massa and them. You do it by terrorizing them. Make an example of one individual, two individuals. I told you, my great uncle, my Uncle Malin, I remember him every time he would tell the story of how he left Texas and he saw 8 black bodies hanging from one tree, and tears would still, even though he was in his 80s, tears would still roll down his face. That's terrorism at its finest. White men, white racist men that believed in lynching. And even though America doesn't want to acknowledge it today, we still have white racist men and women that believe in lynching. Oh, it's horrible, but it's the truth. 8 men hanging from one tree. It's terrorism. It's a terroristic act with a terroristic threat. So now you see, with Lynch himself being the justice of the peace and in charge of the law, you can see how quote unquote law enforcement starts in the root of dastardly deeds against black bodies. because it worked for loyalists and to squash any people that might want to raise an uprising in the new Americas and still be loyal to the British crown. You squash it with lynching. Well, my goodness, if it worked that well with the loyalists, by all means, since we don't even think black bodies are anything more than animals, it'll surely work to keep them under subjection. I'm talking about the law and order of this government that came out of the American Revolution, all the way back to the American Revolution. Because that's where Lynch started his dastardly deeds. Coming out of the American Revolution against British loyalists. So now we see we got all of the white folks from Britain whipped under subjection, and now we're all Americans. We're not associating with Britain anymore. We're not associating with England anymore. We are our own people. Now, mind you, there are Native Americans over here that own this land. But your colonization and your white privilege, even then, if my feet tread on it, it belongs to me. And anything that gets in the way of it belonging to me will kill it dead. Same spirit, same attitude, same egocentrism, because we're entitled to this, which is the theology that becomes very problematic within evangelical white Christianity that's racist, that says we're entitled to it because God wants us to have it. Doesn't matter who I kill. Doesn't matter who I destroy. Doesn't matter who I step on. Doesn't matter who I mistreat. It's the will of God because my white flesh is ordained. Same attitude. Same thought of privilege. So to maintain this plantation capitalism, and we have found black gold, and I'm not talking about Texas tea that boils up out of the earth in the form of oil. I'm talking about black bodies. We have found black gold. And I said it before. So now we come up to a point where we need to control these good niggers. Lynching. And I want you to understand, lynching was not just the hanging up. The thing that they loved about the hanging up was that everybody could see it. It put the body up in the air where everybody could see it. But they also tied bodies to the back of cars and drugged them. They also did multiple shots. Like 7 times in the back. I can't just shoot you once. I gotta unload everything that I can from several people shooting you at the same time. So that when you get finished, you got 45 bullets in Black Panthers in one body. And you want to say that's justified? 45 bullets in one body? Lynching. It was not uncommon for them to take them to a cliff. You saw that one on the news, Heat. It was heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. It's lynching. So they also would take people to a cliff or a high elevation and under mob pressure make them jump off. Any kind of dastardly device that they could use in a public display to keep all the rest of the folk in line, to keep all the rest of the folk in check. That's why when we left here on Friday, and the story about the 27-year-old young man in Arkansas that was sentenced to 2 life sentences consecutively, plus 835 years. Beloved, if you don't understand, that is a lynching. They are sending a message of terror. Now, all the facts. Yes, he was shooting. The man that he shot, the man that he killed, happened to be an off-duty police officer that everybody, including the prosecutor, said they do not believe that that man knew any way, shape, or form that that young man knew he was a police officer, nor did he intend to kill him. 2 consecutive life sentences and 835 years is a lynching. So we get to H.R. 35, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Tim Scott write this. And so they say, well, we don't want to take up a lot of time on the Hill debating it. So we'll just say we need a unanimous vote for it to pass. The games we play, because we're still racist America. The games we play. So to be able to pass H.R. 35, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act of the 116th Congress, we've got to have unanimous vote. Now, you would think in 2020, everybody would be opposed to lynching. After all of these hundreds of years of using it, all the way back to the American Revolution, because remember, Charles Lynch first used it against British loyalists. And then, once we had our patriotism under control, we then took it on over to the plantation to keep our good niggers under our foot, under control, oppressed, beat down, mistreated. But we need them to work the fields. Then we see a whole new evolution of lynch laws. So the 116th Congress, we've had 116 times to eradicate it. And this isn't the first time it's been put up, but it continuously gets shot down every single time. What does that tell you about America? For everybody that wants to say, it's a new day, it's a new way, we're not like that anymore. Why can't an anti-lynching act pass? H.R. 35 meets the likes of Paul Rand of Kentucky. Oh, our good Southern gentleman, Paul Rand of Kentucky. My old Kentucky home. And because we don't have unanimous vote, we don't have H.R. 35. And so there's still no federal regulation against lynching black bodies, or anybody for that matter. H.R. 35 did not pass. And we're talking about June of this year, because the legislation came forward after our dear brother George Floyd was obviously and openly lynched right before our eyes. Oh yeah. But I forgot. He killed himself. Yeah, he killed himself. H.R. 35 was drafted and set forward to address, I know, Heat, my heart is still broken. My heart is still broken because it's still going on. Because there's no federal law that can be enacted by this government. Because at the end of the day, they're not going to come out and make anything against lynching because it's been effective ever since Charles Dastardly Lynch came up with the method as the justice of the peace all the way back at the American Revolution. And it's still working. It's still powerful. It's still effective. And this happened right under our noses. And nobody said a word. But you want to tell me that we're making, this country, we want to make America great again. Make it great the first time. Stop lynching people. Stop lynching people. And to be more specific to my request, stop lynching black people. Breonna Taylor, how many shots were in her body? Sleep in her bed with her boyfriend. Minding her own business in her own house. Doing absolutely nothing to break the law and had not broken any laws. Was doing absolutely, make it right the first time. I'm with you, Heat. Doing absolutely nothing to a no-knock warrant where police officers came in. And that's what I'm telling you. They don't care. Male, female, child, Tamir Rice, little children, 12 years old. They don't care. It's lynching. And H.R. 35 fell by the wayside. In 2020. In 2020. Is anybody hearing me? Now, in actuality, they really tried to press it in 2020, but they wrote the bill in 2019. Before all of this got to the level that it was, because it was already an issue. Statistically, you cannot deny, and for anybody to refute, that there is a disproportionate number of black bodies that are being killed at the hands of the police. Many who are unarmed, many, and it's the same thing. You have this whole thing of saying the accused, whatever you think they're accused of, but more times than not, the very things that they've been accused of, it's found out later to be a lie. Which brings us to why they named it the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. Because you have this 14-year-old boy, 15-year-old boy that is in the deep South minding his own business. And the woman that had all of this furor that came up around saying he whistled at her, years later came back and said she lied. She lied.
Why you always lying?
But he's dead. Mutilated. Pretty near unrecognizable. Lynched by a lynch mob. And somehow the accuracy and the poignancy of these behaviors that have continued from the inception of the American Revolution until this day is not being told correctly. Because somehow or another, that wicked behavior of lynching started by an American patriot from the American Revolution is still considered to be patriotic. So the 17-year-old boy gets a high five, a pat on the back. That's a good patriot. A ride home in mama's car. Probably stopped and got an ice cream cone. If the police had got him, they probably would have taken him to Burger King to get a burger. Unhandcuffed him. Gave him a few more high fives. Way to go, son. Because patriots lynch people. Good patriots lynch a whole bunch of people in the name of making this world a better place and making America great again. Lynching was stronger than H.R. 35. The lynching group who took Emmett Till included the sheriff's deputies, law and order. And you're exactly right, SK. And it often has, because that many times is where it has originated. And for those that did not participate of the law and order, of the police officers, the peace officers, they're keeping peace for the racist white people. Keep your good niggers down. For those that didn't actively participate, which many and most of them did, they just turned a blind eye and didn't see it. Didn't know what was going on. Can't give you any answers. I don't know where Bill, Bob, Jim, and Joe were. I can't tell you nothing. As you come down and investigate all of this crime going on in my parts. As a matter of fact, get back up north. Get out of our parts. We don't want you down here. You're stirring up confusion in my good town. Get out of here, please. Because we produce patriots that believe in lynching. And it's all right by me. HR 35, y'all. We need to demand it. And it needs to have teeth in it. Because at the end of the day, there needs to be consequences for people, including police officers, that lynch. It wasn't right from the beginning. It's not right now. So I want you to understand. I don't know if you realized that it failed because of Paul Rand of Kentucky. But I also want you to understand they weren't foolish. Oh, I feel for my brother. The whole reason why they wanted to insist that it had to be a unanimous vote, they already knew Paul was in the house. They already knew Paul was perched. They already knew Paul had his pen to dissent and a hand to say no. They already knew it. So they never broke a sweat. Because at the end of the day, we want to lynch. We want to lynch. Gotta have that lynch. HR 35 needs to pass. HR 35 needs to come back around. HR 35 needs to address the dastardly act of lynching that has been since the foundation of this country. The change is here. Vote. 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 And then when they ask us, what do you want when we win? When they ask us, what do we want? We want HR 35 to come back around. What the 116th Congress couldn't do. Ask the next Congress that comes in to get it done. We need Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act on the books so that there's a consequence to killing us. Because I feel for my brother. Pass HR 35. Hey, I feel for my brother with a knee in the neck. I feel for my brother that got shot down in cold blood by 3 men. I feel for Breonna Taylor that got shot numerous times in her own home for no cause. I feel for my sister, Sandra Bland, from the jailhouse, hanging with no explanation. She just killed herself. I feel for Philando Castile. I feel for all of these brothers and sisters lynched. And we're not talking about in slavery. We're not talking about in Reconstruction. We're talking about in 2020, 2018, 2017. We're talking about in this age and this time. You're still lynching us. And I feel for my brother. Pass HR 35. Well, listen, I'm so glad that y'all joined me today. I love you. You know I do. I love you. I want to appreciate everybody that came up in Old Cube's house this morning. This is, yes, you, Old Cube, one-on-one, just me and you. This is where I talk to you. We talk about what happened while you slept, slumbered, and slobbered, but we also talk about what's going on today to empower us as a people. Because at the end of the day, we got to come into a place where we can have change. And a change is going to come. Oh, yes, it is. But we got to make it happen. So we got to know what we got to do to make a change. And that's what we talk about. So you came on up in my house this morning. SK, you got Grandpa Holmes's chair. Thank you for coming. The Rebel Inc., you're always with me. Thank you for coming. Jams JJ, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming. BTD Mom, you always up in the house. Thank you for coming. Heat all the way from Toronto in the house. Thank you for coming. Monica, Chris, Rhonda, I think I got everybody that came in the chat today, and I see it's a whole lot of other people out there that didn't say anything to me today, and that's okay. You can come and you can monitor the conversation. You can just sit by and chill. Brenda Munson was in the room. Thank you for coming. Thank you, sis. I appreciate you. Now, I want you to go on up out of here, and I want you to feel for your brother, feel for your sister. I want you to make a difference. I want you to really think about, oh, we love you too, Heat. We love you. We love you, Heat. We love you. Oh, you my girl. You gonna always be my girl. So listen, like my dear friend Rhonda Royal says, you're gonna have things in life that are gonna come. You're gonna have things in life that are gonna go. But at the end of the day, if you don't deal with it, it will deal with you. Handle your business. Do what you need to do. Get a little counseling and some therapy if you need to. That's okay too. Because this is one-on-one Old Cube. Me and you just having a conversation. If you need help, get it. But I guarantee you, if you don't deal with it, it will deal with you. Now, I want you to get that book, The Color of Money, Black Banks and the Racial Wealth Gap. Get your book, because we're going to be coming on up to it. As a matter of fact, I'm giving some of you a little bit of time. You told me the book came in the mail. I'm giving you enough time to read a little bit so we can have conversation while we're going through it. But in the meantime, for those that don't have it, order it. I'm going to say it again. 2 things for your foundational understanding. Get The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, and get The Color of Money, because it gives the foundation of how we, through segregation and other dastardly deeds on the books, de jure, have held black people down and shut them out from opportunity. I want you to get it. I want you to read it. As I always say, this is Regina L. Stillman, your spiritual thought leader. Thank you for joining me. And of all things, I want you to have peace for your journey.